so we're gonna call the March 25th Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors work session to order. Welcome, everyone. As I mentioned, we are recording this. I think David's gonna join us at some point. That's he won't be joining us. The first thing here on our list is a topic review. Are there any changes to the topic list that we have in front of us? I think we've added a couple things in the last few days, items 4 and 5 in particular. Can I close that? Yeah, you wanna close that? Okay. Yeah. One more fresh air.
It just started, yeah.
Spring training.
I've heard it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we added items 4 and 5. Any other additions or deletions to this topic list? Hearing none, we will go with it as presented, which means our first presentation is Amy 1, and we'll have Amy 2. But Amy 1, Amy Richardson, is going to talk to us about food processing and tool rental. She's going to take 10-ish minutes or so. And if we have some questions, we'll follow up with those at the end of her presentation.
Okay. So you'll stop sharing.
Yes. I'm looking for the website. I do want the website though. What is that not showing up?
Here's some equipment.
Are you sharing your application or your window?
I must be showing the window. So let me go back. Sorry. Stop there.
What's your dog saying?
What's that?
Your dog's saying, what's your dog?
Nyota.
And
Neil.
this one is what I don't know.
Oh, my pup. I mean, Nyota.
Okay. And then this is in my way. Sorry. I'm trying to get to the website here. I don't know why it's not showing. So I want the zoom out of the way. How do I do that?
Go to,
Would it be helpful, Amy, if I pulled up the website for you
Yeah,
and shared?
yeah, that would be great. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I think it's just the regular equipment rental page.
Yes. So now I'm seeing it. Works. It's a slow
There we go.
process.
Will you expand the,
Yeah, I don't know
Zoom
why
window,
the
Sophia?
Zoom wouldn't go.
it's Sophia's.
So basically, I've been working on getting the equipment program kind of into a cohesive system, adding we added a new poultry processing unit, which was the picture that I had up, so I will figure out how to pop that up in a minute. But so all of the equipment now is updated on the website, and if you scroll down, I did put a picture of the plug for the trailer because that's been a question for a lot of folks. If you scroll down further, each of the units are listed there, and so you pop into the poultry processing, for example. I did add a little information on the avian flu safety with a link to the WSDA website for people to keep informed. Then the available equipment is listed under there. And kind of the things that you need, the snapshot of what people want to know, and then rental period, costs, etc. There is our new unit. I have there is a bigger picture, but that one doesn't blow up. That is a high capacity unit, so you can do 18 broilers at once on a stand. It has turkey cones also in it, a few different sizes of turkey cones. There is, a large propane scalder, a large electric scalder, the large turkey plucker, a generator to run, the plucker, some, heavy duty extension cords. So there's all of the gear that you need to process a large quantity of, poultry, or do turkeys also. So, so yeah, that is all on a larger trailer. Every processing unit has its own trailer.
You want questions now or at the
Let's,
end?
let's hold them till the end.
And then, if you, go down further, this is the form that you use to fill out to do a reservation request. And the smart sheets, basically the renter fills out the rental request form. And they, all that information goes into a smart sheet spreadsheet for us, for Sophia and I. And we can manage the rentals, times, dates, what type of equipment, all of those things. One of the things that I just recently figured out, I'm very proud of, is there are also tools on this one. This particular reservation sheet is poultry equipment and tools, and there's one on the smart sheet.
Oh.
There is, if you scroll down, if you say there's a part that says what type of equipment would you like to rent, and you can choose tools. If you choose tools, it opens up different questions,
Yeah.
right? So each thing is kind of plays off of the questions that you answer. We have multiple shovels, for example, multiple weed wrenches. And so in the past, you had to fill out a request form for each one. Now you can pick, yeah, I want shovels, I want weed wrenches, I want rakes. And then you can, if you pick all of those, then it opens up more boxes and you can choose how many of each. And all of that information goes into our spreadsheet and makes it really nice and easy. So there's so many layers to all of this. So that's kind of what I've been going through, is pulling the strands of the layers. So that is one of the systems, the smart sheet systems, that I've kind of been corralling with the equipment rentals. Another one that I started with is a checklist, and I'll just pass these around since I am not great on the sharing right now. And so each type of equipment has a rental checklist, and so this allows us to meet with the renter at their rental appointment. We're trying to be really good at letting people know we have a specific time that you need to come and check out the equipment, and you need to be prompt and on time, because if not, it really makes it difficult for us to schedule around. And so we meet with the renter, we go through the checklist with them. They have the opportunity to, on the reservation form, there's the terms and conditions that are on there. So they have to check mark that and agree to it. But we reiterate on the checklist, I've seen the terms and conditions, and they are initialing that, and they sign their name on the checklist. And so it's just kind of different layers of making sure people are being, have clear information and the clear ways of interacting with the equipment. There's binders that go with each piece of equipment, and when they also come in and check out, we go through, Sophia often is the one who goes through the binders with the renter, points out the information in the binders, there's manuals, all that kind of stuff, information on properly cleaning the equipment. And then they go on their way, and when they come back, then we go through the bottom part of the checklist and make sure, okay, everything is returned, everything is clean to our standard. Because we cannot really clean it here, nor should we need to, it needs to be returned to us clean. make sure that all the things are in place. If there's any damage, then we learn about that. And then we have our own little checklist, to make sure, okay, like the cinder blocks were placed back, the keys were returned, and, you know, like different little details that we need for maintenance to do, so. Yeah, I think those are kind of the main, shifts and changes and kind of, gathering information and trying to get it all assimilated and try and catch all those little details, yeah.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, absolutely.
I just wanna thank Amy for her work pulling all these different pieces of the equipment rental program together. Amy and Sophia have worked really hard together at kind of taking a program that was sort of scattered amongst a variety of staff members and really consolidating it, making it really efficient, updating all of the information, updating all of the guidance, working with Ben on multiple iterations of that legal disclaimer. Making sure we had all the resources, all the tools, all the maintenance schedules, all the checklists. Operating equipment rental program is not for the faint of heart. We are one of the only districts that still does it. But it is hands down one of the most valuable pieces to our community, which is why we still do it.
Yeah,
And it takes a considerable amount of time. And so I just want to say thank you to those staff that do that work because it is so important. And now it is streamlined, standardized, efficient, more efficient anyway. It's an equipment rental program, but it's more efficient than it's ever been. And there's no expectations. It's easier for people to access and participate in. And honestly, that's what's keeping the program going is all of the work that Amy and Sophie have done in the last year. So
Cool. All right, Doug, you wanted to ask the first question. You'll be second and I'll go after that.
Any issues with Department of Health? Do we have to get inspections from them?
nope, not that I am aware of, yeah, no.
And the second question is, my background is wildlife.
Mhm.
A lot of hunters have pheasants, ducks, stuff, small numbers. So
Yes.
it's probably wouldn't be cost effective, but that might be another avenue to. If we got downtime or
Yeah.
something.
So we do have a game bird plucker. We decided to hold it back because we have not had any rental interest in it at all at this point. And for now, we're holding it back in case one of the chicken units need to be fixed, and so we can do a quick swap out. We did have it up for a while and we haven't had any interest.
I wouldn't think they would
We do
know
have some
about it.
small cones, right, yeah, if it's not up. So that might be something we could do is just is advertise it and say maybe upon request or something like
we
that.
can
Like
swap
I've
them out.
put
Yeah.
Canadian honkers and
Yeah.
it just takes forever.
Yeah,
And community
Okay.
outreach program during duck season.
Just to a targeted space.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
targeted space,
Yeah.
say duck hunters, TCD.
yeah, okay, yeah, that's.
You're next.
Okay, two quick questions I'll
Mhm.
ask at the same time. So what happens if it doesn't come back complete, and what happens, if it comes back dirty? And then what's the time limit on unless I missed it, what's the time limits on the poultry?
So the rental period is Thursday through Monday. And that's just for,
All of it?
yeah, for
Okay.
all of it right now.
Mhm.
That allows for 2 days for us to address any issues. And also for it to sit. We do also, I wanted to make sure I mentioned, we do have a good cleaning and sanitation protocol, and I have talked to the WSDA vet to kind of reiterate what we're doing, and he's like, yeah, that sounds great. We have there's a disinfection kind of a kit that goes with the equipment and a brush. And renters are supposed to clean it and spray the disinfectant.
And if they don't, do they lose the opportunity to rent again?
So if it comes back dirty and not to our standards, we have to ask them to take the unit back and clean it properly.
Okay.
If they will not do that, then they, I would say if it's really bad. Well, if they won't do it, then they get a block mark, basically.
We have a penalty system.
And yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and then,
Their deposit.
And I.
yeah,
That's
and we
very
definitely keep their deposit.
Okay,
So so we have a deposit situation and then we have the block mark
Thank you.
situation, and then they would not be able to rent from us
Okay,
in
thank
the
you.
future. Yep.
Right, I have a couple questions. You were done?
Yes.
Okay, so we're now closed on Fridays. Is that creating any challenges for people who can't come pick it up on a Thursday? Have you heard anything
Not
about
so
that?
far.
Not so far?
Mhm.
We are open by appointment only on Friday, so if somebody had a reason, hey, I
We
can't
could
come
meet
on
them here.
Thursday, we absolutely do
All right.
meet them here, yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. I was gonna
Um,
mention that too.
Second thing, I've heard from a couple of people who used to rent our equipment before it was on a trailer. And they say, well, I can't rent it anymore because I don't have any way to tow a trailer.
Mhm.
And, you know, they used to be able to put it in the back of the pickup truck or whatever. What do we do about that? Because clearly there are people, I think, that want to use our equipment that can't because it's all trailer now.
Yeah.
Well, they can rent a truck.
That makes the economics even less interesting
If they have a truck, they
for
can.
small scale projects.
Right.
They should have a truck to get it.
Well, you need to have the lighting though. If you don't have
Yeah.
lighting, then you can't take it.
Yes.
So,
So before we move to the trailering system, I think there were very few renters that were that a trailer system would bar them from renting, and that's one of the reasons we made this switch.
Okay.
It was also because we would frequently not get all of our pieces back because they weren't
Yeah.
contained.
Mhm.
No, I
Um,
understand why we did it. I'm just wondering if we've cut people out of our service because they can't do the trailer.
We haven't heard a ton of
I-
feedback
mhm.
Okay.
to TCD, so if you're
Okay.
hearing those folks, that would
I
be
just heard it from two
interesting.
different people.
Yeah.
recently, so.
We do not receive
And
that
they were,
feedback
they're
often.
small, like 5, 10 backyard chicken kind of thing.
Mostly what we hear from people are that they are grateful they don't have to help us pick the equipment up anymore and lift it into the back
Yeah,
of something.
absolutely.
So we've heard the inverse, that we're like, gosh, I can't bring two people with me to lift this stuff. Thank
Yeah,
you for
yeah.
having a system for us to pull it.
Okay.
I think that is worth some exploration. If there's another pathway there, I hesitate to break the equipment apart, and pull it back out of trailers, but having some more conversation about a
I
pathway.
think just
would be
tracking
great.
if there are people that, or we're hearing from, that's a barrier, we'd want to know about that.
How
I
big
think-
is the game bird unit? Is it easily liftable?
didn't
Could it?
It is 110
think-
pounds, I
I put it
believe.
in the notes.
Okay,
They're not
There's a
super
bunch of
easy
pieces.
to move. They're bulky and heavy. I would say one thing we are tracking is out of county requests. Because Lewis has shut down their
Yeah.
equipment
And
rental
Mason.
program. Mason has too.
They-
Hadn't heard
they
that.
gave
so are we tracking their requests and then giving that data to them, saying you gotta help your people?
We have not yet. We've gotten 7 so far
Okay.
in 2025.
Okay,
So, we are sending a response to the requesters, with
Yeah.
a letter basically saying why, and, but that, it would be something that would be good to.
I've talked to all of their
share with them.
districts
Yeah.
about it and let them know, and we have been supporting a supervisor in Wakayakum with some of our materials because they're interested in
Okay.
starting one up and maybe
Yeah.
doing more regional, because Wakayakum is smaller.
yeah, yeah,
It would maybe cover further in Southwest Washington, but
okay.
yeah,
All
We
right,
are
well, as
keeping
long,
the data.
as long as we're tracking it and letting the other districts know.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh.
and part of an equipment roundtable. Also, we had a meeting this morning and we're getting like all of the districts listed with the equipment that they have, if they lease it to other districts, so on and so forth. So we're kind of like this like statewide getting kind of organized around the equipment and seeing the feasibility too of the costs and how to kind of make it
Okay,
kind of break even at least and stuff. So there's a lot of good momentum around it right now.
It's a good outreach tool too.
Yeah, it
We
is.
talked to one of the
Yeah.
representatives and he mentioned that.
yeah.
Oh, it's hugely important too, because a lot of producers really need to have that shared equipment, so.
well, thank you for being here. We have to wrap this up.
Yes,
Thank you for
absolutely.
sharing that, and I look forward, I've got it rented in July.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know you
Can't
rent
wait.
it.
Yep.
and
We'll
got
Process
to see it,
chickens in
thank you.
July, so.
Yeah, nice, excellent.
Okay, thanks, Amy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Good job.
Okay, that was Amy 1. Now we'll move to Amy 2, partner presentation here about Wolf Haven International.
Yeah.
Same thing, if you can, take 10, 15 minutes and we'll see if we have any questions at the end of that.
Sure, let me try to share this. Is that cool?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so, oh, I think, do I need to be off mute
No, you're
on the
on that
hour?
one.
Okay, how many of you have been to Wolf Haven before? Oh, most of you. Okay, so my thought for today is just to do a quick overview of some of the different programs that we're involved with, but what I'm really interested in is a new program that I'm developing that I've talked with Sarah and Amy about, and just to get a little bit of feedback if we have time around that. So Wolf Haven is a sanctuary for captive born and displaced wolves and wolf dogs. And since we started in 1982, we've been a forever home for over 300 animals. And the animals that have come to us have come along a number of different paths. Some have been relinquished from private ownership, others have come from roadside zoos, various channels of the pet trade, some have come from accredited zoos, but while each animal has a unique story, they've all come to us through some type of captive environment. And Wolf Haven is the only wolf sanctuary in the world that's accredited by the Global owners face through that property and our Sinai property as well. And then we're also part of a federally managed endangered species program called SAFE, and this stands for Saving Animals from Extinction. And this is a captive breeding program, but the intention is to release some of those animals into the wild. And so SAFE in itself is an umbrella program for a number of different endangered species. And then we're part of two of those programs, one for the American red wolf and then the other for the Mexican wolves. And just a cool success story is that we had an American red wolf by the name of Finch, who was born at Wolf Haven. He spent 7 years of his life there, and he went out into the wild last year. And not only did he go out in the wild, he paired with a wild female and helped produce a litter of 8 puppies. So super cool, because this is the most critically endangered canid in the world. So every addition to that population is massive. So him and his little 8 pups were quite a story. And then we have a number of education and outreach programs, and these are tailored for youth and adults. We offer a lot of them at Wolf Haven, so folks can come to Wolf Haven, see some of the wolves there, and then learn about their ecology and their natural history and some of the conservation. And then we also bring those programs out into the community. So we have a number of different things I can share with you more later. And then since 2013, we have served on the Wolf Advisory Group. And this is a group of stakeholders that represent livestock producers and hunters and environmentalists that are working in partnership with the Department of Fish and Wildlife to help guide wolf recovery and management in the state. So this group, I serve on it now. Diane Gallegos, our former executive director, was on it from 2013. And this group operates via a philosophy and an approach called conservation conflict transformation. And this is really a different approach than what most wolf advocates take. It's about really working with diverse stakeholders who have not only different perspectives, but sometimes very opposing perspectives, but really putting in place processes where all stakeholders benefit from how wolves are protected and how they're managed. And then also really emphasizing that relationship piece. So knowing that wolves are incredibly challenging and it takes everyone to figure out how we are going to most effectively coexist with them. So the Wolf Advisory Group, just by nature of where wolves are, and I want to show you these maps so that we're kind of all coming from the same place. This one on the left is a population count, and this was from the most recent population count, but it's going to be updated in about a week. And so those green polygons on the map are known pack territories. So you can see just by looking at the map, most of our wolf packs are really concentrated up in Northeast Washington. So that's where the Wolf Advisory Group's efforts are really focused, just because that's where most of the wolves are, and that's where the big cattle operations are. But as wolves started filling in that northeastern corner and those areas became saturated, wolves started moving west and came into the North Cascades region. And what you'll notice on that map too is that we don't currently have any known wolf packs down in our region in the South Cascades. But we know that they're coming, and we know that some individuals have shown up in the South Cascades. They just haven't formed a pack yet. And so I-90 creates a big barrier for wolves getting south, and not just for wolves, but for a number of critters. And that little blue polygon down in the South Cascades, it says Big Muddy on there. That was actually a pack in 2022. And then in 2023, the female disappeared. And then in this year, in December, the male was poached. So they're showing up in places like Klickitat County. And for some reason, there haven't been any confirmed wolf depredations there, but there have been a lot of poaching. So it's like as soon as wolves arrive, they're killed. So in thinking about that then, and then if you look at the map on the right, that's a habitat suitability map. And so this was put together by folks from UW. And the bright yellow and then the flamey red and orange, those are prime wolf habitat. And what makes prime wolf habitat in this model is where they're good ungulate populations. So where they're healthy elk, deer that can support wolves. And those polygons on top of it are, again, those pack territories. So as you would expect, wolves are filling in precisely where there's good habitat. And so when you look down in our region, we're not sitting precisely where wolves are, but we're pretty darn close. And we are also actually sitting right here on where one of those habitat wildlife crossing corridors could go, the northern linkage, because that linkage is going to run from exit 99 to 88. So as wolves move from Klickitat County and down in that yellow area and try to work their way up into the Olympics, they could very well be passing through our area. And so in thinking about that, we are developing a program that we're calling Wolf-Wise Communities. And I always like to put in the extra on a landscape of hope, because we are thinking that as wolves, are moving and dispersing and the population is growing, we want to put in place a very proactive effort to network and communicate with the communities here before wolves actually get on the landscape, to start talking through some of what that might look like for folks. And not just in the sense of wolves are coming, look at all the problems you're going to have, but really talking through and mostly trying to figure out what are the unique circumstances that are going to come to our area, because we're in a different habitat, we're in a different landscape than what is in Eastern Washington. I was actually quite surprised to find out how many livestock operations are here. They're much smaller scale, but what that could mean in my mind is that if wolves got into trouble with livestock, maybe we have a lot more people that are affected than what we see in Eastern Washington, where wolves, when they get in trouble, not all wolves get into trouble. 80% of our packs have never been implicated in any livestock depredations. But when they get in trouble, it can be very problematic for a particular producer. But here we might run into a scenario where, because of the smaller scale, many more producers are affected. So what are some of the unique situations, scenarios here that we might face if and when wolves arrive? And so really what the Wolf-Wise program is, though, is we know, and I know this so much from serving on the Wolf Advisory Group, wolves are contentious. They're incredibly divisive, and you don't even have to be living with wolves or affected by wolves negatively to have a really strong opinion about wolves. And so wolf issues themselves, I would argue 90% of them aren't even about wolves. They're about people. They're about dysfunctional relationships between people not talking with one another, and people not really taking the time to network with people who are outside of their silos. And so one of the things that the Wolf-Wise program is about is it's so much more than wolves. It's really about how do we convene people, again, people that not just have different perspectives, but opposing perspectives, and start having conversations about wolves and about what's going on in the current community locally. What are those things? What are the current struggles, challenges? Because those things very quickly become embedded into wolf issues, even if they're unrelated. And so part of what the Wolf-Wise vision is about is really understanding what are the various ways that people perceive and define wolf issues and other wildlife conservation issues. And then have a consistent place where we can exchange reliable information, because so much of what I see with wolves is fear-based. Fear-based because you just simply don't have access to knowing anything different. And it's that we're in that space of not talking with one another outside of our stakeholder groups and just making assumptions about things. And so how do we create a space, a forum where we can regularly come together and exchange reliable information, and not just reliable information about wolves, but what is your perspective? What is your experience? What's your reality on this landscape with whatever you're dealing with? And then identify shared goals, because so much of what's happening in the wolf world is we find all the things that we disagree on. But when you start having good conversations with people, you realize actually there's a lot more things that we do agree on. We're just not having those conversations enough to find that place where we agree on, because we get so fixated on where we disagree. And so I think that as we start talking more, we will identify those shared goals and then brainstorm solutions together, because all of the thing that wolves will guarantee you is that you've got to think outside of the box, and you've got to think really broadly and differently. And the only way we can do that is if we are talking with one another and sharing our own expertise, our own realities on the landscape, and doing that together. And then cultivate a sense of ownership of the process and the outcomes. And what I focus on here is that process piece, because people, you can have folks that are in total disagreement, but when they feel legitimately part of a process that is, again, legitimate, it's fair, it's inclusive, they're much more likely to agree to things that don't fully align with their desires, if they feel part of that process. And the process piece, I think, is so important to navigating wildlife conservation challenges, and yet it's the most neglected in all of the things that we see in the world of wolves. And so that is kind of in a nutshell and very quickly the vision of a WolfWise program that I would like to hear some of your feedback on. And then in addition to all the stuff that we do with wolves, we also work with prairie conservation. So on our property, we have 36 acres of Mina Mound Prairie. And when we acquired that land for the wolves, all of that was buried under Scotch broom. So in 1982, it was just swaths and swaths and swaths of Scotch broom. And it wasn't until 2007 that we really started the intensive restoration efforts. So there were things happening like mowing the Scotch broom, but the intensive restoration started in 2007. And then we started an annual prescribed burn, planting native seeds and native plugs. And now today, all that Scotch broom is completely managed by hand pulling, and it's recognized as one of the best examples of successful prairie restoration in the South Sound region. So it's a small but mighty prairie. It's a really beautiful. I was out there today and we had our first golden paintbrush balloon pop up.
Oh my gosh.
So they're just starting now, but really cool. We've been a success site for reintroduction efforts for Mazama pocket gophers. We are hopefully going to be considered a potential site for Taylor's checker spot release eventually. We have bluebirds out there, but yeah, and we're one of the few spots that does annual burns, and we've done them every year since 2007. So in 2021, we finished 2 full iterations of going completely around the whole prairie. So yeah, so very cool stuff. Thank you. This is a wolf at our sanctuary with the camas. But really wanted to try to move through that quickly to offer more space so that I can get some of your questions or feedback on the WolfWise.
They can have my deer.
So our staff has met with Wolf Haven staff to talk about agricultural BMPs and where there could be wildlife friendly and agricultural friendly BMPs and how we can collaborate on that, collaborate on other projects, like maybe how do you deal with offal, and could there be a collaboration or some synergy here as a wolf attractant, right? And we've also invited all of the other conservation districts within Southwest Washington to join a conversation to hear the information that Amy has to share about creating these conversations if wolves are going to be migrating into this area. So it's been really fascinating to learn, and I wanted to make sure you guys were aware, as this could become very political very soon. I think you heard from
We heard at the conference.
folks, yes, at WACD, that there's a lot of, from the Northeast, that there's a lot of thoughts about that, and so.
I'd be willing to talk to you about that too.
Yeah.
Cause I'm a farm and wildlife agent for Ferry and Stevens County.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
We work very closely with them through the Wolf Advisory Group.
But I think the way you presented it is non-confrontational and solution oriented.
Yes.
A lot of the folks, I'll just say, I don't think are, they think, it's kind of the Edward Abbey thing. Yeah, coyotes eat sheep, but do you eat enough sheep? I mean,
Wow, it was a good presentation.
Thank you.
And they are wonderful animals. I do. I mean, I've heard a lot of.
They're amazing. They
Yeah,
really
they're
are
beautiful
amazing,
animals.
but they can really bring a lot of headaches to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And I've seen that very clearly and heard that very clearly. And some years, depredations aren't so much of a big deal, for anybody, but last year was a particularly bad year. So right now, producers up in Northeast Washington, as grazing season is about to start, April, are pretty nervous about how wolves are managed. And one of the other things I'll just show you on this map quickly, wolves in Washington are managed differently depending on what part of the state you're in.
Yeah.
And so in Eastern Washington, they've lost federal protections, which means management falls under state. And that gives a little bit more flexibility in how wolves are managed if and when they get into problems. But as wolves, if they maintain their federal protections, which I don't think they will for much longer,
Right.
if they do maintain their federal protections and they showed up here tomorrow and got into trouble, lethal removal would not be an option
Right.
because they maintain. So there's a lot more, when wolves come, there are a lot of differences that they won't be managed in the same way that they are in the east, and that could be very problematic for folks here.
Mm.
And even if they do lose their federal protections because they haven't fully shown up in the South Cascades, even then, without federal protections, the state might not be willing to move to lethal management because part of the criteria for delisting them across the state is that they have to have 4 successful breeding pairs in each of those 3 regions that are outlined in that map.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna check with David. Do you have any questions here as we're getting towards the end of this? Any comments or questions?
I really enjoy the presentation, and I look forward to more conversation. I think how we can prepare local producers for the future if indeed wolves are to return to this habitat.
Yeah.
yeah. And one of the things people have said to me is like, well, what are all the non-lethal tools that work? And non-lethal tools are a great resource, but one of the things about them is they're very context specific. And so even in Eastern Washington, you may have a tool that's very effective on one allotment, but not effective at all on a neighboring allotment. And so I think we need to be mindful of that and think that we can't just take all of our lessons learned in Eastern Washington and apply them here. We really need to start those conversations now. But even outside of the controversies and the challenges with wolves, I think the most important thing is that we start building community with one another. And that's where we found, the conservation district so valuable because you are so well tapped into all the community. And Wolf Haven has been trying to do that, slowly trying to go to different workshops. And, I was at the awful workshop. But it's a slow process. And when you're dealing with something, that can be as divisive and contentious as wolves, that's going to take time. And yeah.
From a Southwest Washington producer perspective, unlike the large herds in the Northeast, there are not just a lot of small herds here, but the herds are small. So even a transitory wolf going through with limited predation associated with a single wolf could have a disproportionate impact on a small herd.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that needs to be kept in mind.
Yeah.
About a unique challenge in this region.
Yeah.
I'll just say kind of as we're wrapping up here. So I've been a wolf advocate since the 1980s when I opposed aerial hunting of wolves in Alaska for a long time. And I personally think the world would be better off if we had fewer people and more wolves and grizzly bears. And I hope I live long enough to watch a wolf carry one of my chickens off, because I watch the coyotes do it all the time, but I'd love to see a wolf do it. So, I think that anytime.
Shepherding that.
Anyway,
If our
I
board,
think that the way you're approaching this conversation makes sense. I think it's good to partner with you on this. And I hope we all have the opportunity to see wolves come through our region on their way to the Olympics at some point.
Yeah, there's talks right now, just because it's been such a slow process to get them in the South Cascades of translocation. And I personally I'm nervous about that idea, for many reasons, which we can talk about another time. I think wolves can and will get here on their own. And I think for the social aspect of it, it will be much better for wolves and people if they do it on their own. It's like, if you can remove one layer of complications with wolves, remove it, because there's enough of them. But yeah, I think, being here today is really lovely. Thank you for having me here and
Appreciate you
just,
taking the time.
really wanting to share the vision. And then, it's still a a work in process. And so getting that feedback and where you think there's gonna be hiccups or roadblocks or where people are gonna be interested will be really good feedback.
If our board wanted to stay engaged in that conversation, or if they know community members that
Yeah.
would like to be engaged, how should they do that best?
Email me first.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're trying to set up like a sign up sheet. We just haven't fully worked out the details. We have a new address that will go specifically for Wolfwise stuff, but for now you can just email me directly. And then as we get different events going, we will always reach out to you too and network just to help like
Word out.
get the word out.
Help
Yeah.
connect.
We're starting preparations for our annual meeting statewide. It's
Mhm.
gonna be in Spokane. I'd like to talk with you about maybe presenting,
Absolutely.
it would be really contentious. I mean,
I serve on the WAG. I work at the, I like. and before that, I was
Heard from the WAG last year.
I can, yeah.
I can broach that during our planning meeting and say, you know, this is, would help heal a situation maybe.
Yeah, I think the WAG, the Wolf Advisory Group gets a lot of feedback, so, not so great. And, I really with all my heart believe in the approach of networking broadly and really trying to form relationships with people and being better listeners and really asking better questions of one another. And I know people get frustrated with that because they feel like it's slow and we need immediate actions. But I think when we work from that constant space of frenetic energy and urgency, we're not always our best selves and we're not always thinking in our best ways. So it's a slow but steady process. And I really believe in that. So,
Thank you.
yeah,
for being
thank
here.
you. Thank you. My pleasure. Yeah.
You're welcome to stay and
Yeah.
you're welcome to leave.
The dog
Up to
sitter
you.
for now. So yes,
Okay,
I can
we're gonna
definitely
keep
stay.
trucking on through our agenda then here, our list. Next up, honoring Betsy's board service. So Betsy is going to no longer be a board member within the next 2 months when the commission certifies. And I think we all know also about Betsy's, the loss of her husband, partner Gregory, last week. So I don't know if we'll see her at another meeting or not, but certainly we have to figure out some way to honor her, two terms, 6 years of service to this board.
Yeah, typically when a board member is leaving, we honor them with some sort of memento. So it's been a Carhartt jacket with a patch. It's been a plaque. It's been all different types of things in the past, and we've tried to pick something that's really it's been a piece of art. It's been something that's spoken to the individual that we've honored. I think we've moved away from like the plaque that hangs on the wall and more to something that people are gonna use or, remind them. So yeah, tools or something like that.
A tree.
I
Or a
was gonna say
tree.
a tree, but I didn't know if that was.
So that's something
something I
for
would want.
consideration
But
is
I
we'll
would
wanna
need
do
to
that.
have
I
a tree.
did speak with Betsy or communicate with Betsy last night and she did mention she at some point later this year would like to come back as a guest and say thank you and have that kind of goodbye moment. There could also be the picnic that we do. There could be a variety of gatherings where we connect with Betsy and honor her. So if anybody has feedback about that, I would love to do that and get the ball rolling to get her that sort of thank you letter and that whatever that sort of memento is. And then on the other side of that, I'll be sending out a link because Betsy is our paperless advocate of the district for a virtual card acknowledging Gregory's
Sure.
passing. So please look for that link. And then once that's wrapped up, we're going to send it on behalf of all of us. And then stay tuned. I'll send out any other information about other ways to support Betsy during this time. She's got a really strong community who's wrapping her with all kinds of love, and her kids are here. And so if there's anything else that the board would like, let me know in that regard. Otherwise, I'll keep you guys posted. And I've been checking in on her and reaching out and offering support and love. And
I would think in terms of a gift, reaching out to the people that know her best,
That's a good idea.
like Jennifer Belknap and Joe from Wobbly
Yeah.
Cart and the people down in her community about what would make sense. Cause she's not a hang a plaque on the wall
No.
kind of person.
No.
Yeah,
And the
so,
picnic thing sounds.
yeah, we should definitely bring it up, but just in terms of a thing,
Mhm.
reach out to the people that know her and ask about that.
Yeah.
So,
Good
We'll
idea.
do that.
okay. All right, item 5, Tumwater Fresh program support. So Tumwater Fresh is a grub kind of program at Tumwater High School. And it's been going for a while. We've been involved with it here and there. I got an email from Tumwater City Council person. We had a Dalhoff about 2 weeks ago. That the program funding had been cut for that program by the Tumwater School District. And she was reaching out to me and some other elected officials, like help. And what can the district do to help with this? So I passed that along to Sarah and to get people connected to the right staff members here that could help answer that question, because I can't answer that question. So that's the background. Is there any further update on where we're at?
So on the staff side, David also requested that this item be on here, so he may have some other information to share. But yeah, Nora and Stephanie have sent an email out to City of Tumwater to
Right.
meet and see where we can identify either, short-term capacity or funding support opportunities or long-term programmatic strategy opportunities. So they're beginning that conversation, both of which have a lot of experience, one with this program and supporting it, but also supporting and standing up a bunch of other community garden, school garden, these types of programs in a longstanding partnership with Grub. So yeah, more to come. They've reached out, and so
Yep.
they just
We
need
gotta
to
reach back.
Okay, cool.
David, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Nothing further. No, I got the same email as TJ, and I was in support as well. So I just want to make sure that we got it and could talk about it and hopefully help get it going again.
Yeah, it sounds like we've moved it in the right direction. Okay, next up, annual and strategic planning.
Woohoo! So you all probably have not had a lot of opportunity to look at the email that I sent yesterday, but I'll pause for a moment and see if there's any immediate thoughts or questions for those of you that may have had a chance. I sent you 2 documents. One was very similar to our 2024 annual plan. It's our 2025 annual plan. Metrics are pretty similar. But it updates some of the process pieces. No major red flags or points there I want to call your attention to. The strategic plan also had fewer revisions that I anticipated. I did change some of the metrics as directed by the board to reflect our current capacity, which is more than what we had anticipated. There's very few areas of work, which I called out on the side in a separate comment bubble, which we can go through if the board would like. Where a different partner entity really just took on that body of work instead of TCD. And so we specifically chose not to work in that arena because someone else was, and we're very few of them in comparison. So this is the final draft from staff on both of these sides. So unless there's any further revision, comments, or questions, they're ready for your approval when you're ready to approve them.
Doug?
I actually read it, both of them. Thank you for doing strike through and underline, because I'd like to know, okay, what did we change?
Yep.
I didn't have any heartburn over anything.
Marianne?
I read it. It looks great. I know. I
See,
read it.
2 for 2 on the reading here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
David?
I did glance over it quickly. I haven't read the whole thing in depth, but it looks great so far. I really appreciate all the different categories we're working on right now. What was the one I liked the most? Community outreach and engagement, of course. Producer support and preservation of working lands. I'm really excited about that one. So just my comments for now.
I too read it. And I'm okay with it. Yeah, 4 for 4. I've got a good board here.
We do have a great board.
I did have one question and maybe a comment on the producer support piece. Could you put that on screen? And maybe I was reading it wrong, but I want to take a look at that. Yes, if you don't mind.
I can pull it up, Sophia. That's fine. Do you want to pull up the annual plan or the strategic plan?
Strategic plan. I'm fine with the annual plan. It was so close to last time.
True. Okay.
Yep. It was on the strategic plan.
I got it.
Well, there's a section that's about producer support, I think, a couple pages in to the document.
Well, she's pulling that up. I would just keep in mind that with all the trauma that's going on, coming down from Washington DC through NRCS and all, we need to be able to pivot if we need to. I don't foresee that, but
Yeah,
there's so many crazy things going on.
every day.
All right, let's scroll down. Can you see that, everyone?
Yes.
Great, let's scroll down to the producer support section. Do that faster. Oof. Here we go.
That section. Okay, so is the stuff in green there new language that we're adding?
No, those are probably their definitions, and they pull you down to the glossary at the bottom of the page.
Got it. Okay, that answers my question. I was really troubled by the term regenerative agriculture because it's been hijacked.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean what we thought it meant,
Yeah.
5 years ago when we did this plan anymore. But since it's in here, that's fine, and we're
Yeah.
doing a new strategic plan. We'll talk about that larger issue as part of that process. I just couldn't tell if this was an addition
Yeah.
or not because it was in color.
Yeah, and just so that everyone else knows, the text sections, the descriptions, I did not change,
Okay.
just the how, just the actions over here. The green text, if you can see those ones, I'll link to a glossary in the bottom of the document. The blue ones link to a web page.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's the only comment I had. Otherwise, I'm
Okay.
fine with it. It sounds like we're all fine with it.
Okay.
So do you want to
Want to
put it?
take a look at the definition of regenerative agriculture to make sure it's like what you're talking about?
No, because it's already in the plan. We're not changing anything about it. I'm okay with that, but I definitely want to spend some time
Moving forward.
moving forward.
I like the hot links and the links to the definition. I think
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
really good stuff. Well, thank you.
So do you want to put this on consent for our next meeting in April? Is that okay if we adopt it in April?
That's perfect timing.
Okay, let's put it on consent for April. Item 7. A few minutes left here, legislative updates.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be brief. We continue to have great meetings with our elected officials. We did the 22nd district earlier this month. That went very well. House Bill 1488, the rates and charges bill, is currently the Rules Committee of the Senate. We're waiting for that to be pulled any minute now to the Senate floor. There's still a lot of momentum behind it. There's still conversations about the amendment that the Senate had placed on that, which still has population-based criteria cap, which is not favorable. We're hoping that either it remains true to the House version of the bill with no cap, but a locally derived decision between county commissioners and conservation districts, or that there is a higher flat cap that's not based on population, which is a more equitable solution across the state. So more to come on that. WAC is tracking that, and their lobbyist is sending out information as the bill moves and when there's points of action. So we're hurrying up to wait. Multiple budgets have come out since then. Everybody, of course, this is the scatter moment where nothing matches and people are concerned about one thing or another. We're gonna hold tight for a second. The capital budget is not out, just the operating. And we're gonna see what ends up in the capital that we might have been in the operating in past bienniums. We have a feeling that a lot of the pieces we might be missing are gonna end up there because we do so many capital projects. We put so much conservation work on the ground. We've had things show up in capital that really, or in operating, excuse me, that really didn't need to be there because they're for capital funded projects. So we're gonna see what happens when that comes out, and then of course, all of the reconciliation process happens. So WACD is working really hard, talking to all of our electeds about our tier of important pieces with CTA, with community wildfire and forest health, with engineering funding as the primary pieces that districts need to move forward. So that matches what our needs are here at TCD. Everything else is shaking out okay. So we're gonna wait until we hear more about those pieces. But that's the sort of budget update. Is a lot of information is coming out. None of it matches. There's a whole reconciliation process. We'll see what happens with the capital budget.
All right,
I've got some more.
okay.
The budget priorities, or like Sarah said, except for the engineering, the WACD budget priorities. They want to reinstate $1 million into the Conservation Commission Science Hub. That's the Levi thing.
Mhm.
So there's that. There's an 8.3% reduction in the commission budget that's being considered. We'll see what happens there. The operating budget bills are supposed to come out on the 24th. I wouldn't hold your breath.
No, they came out. That
They
was
did.
yesterday. They were both released.
Mhm.
See, well, this is, I guess, outdated then.
Yeah.
And the capital budget priority was the NRI, the Natural Resources Initiative stuff for the capital side. But as Sarah mentioned, there's a whole bunch of stuff that could slop over from the operating into the capital budget. And the Wade conference is going to be in Leavenworth on, I think, the 9th, 10th, and 11th, something like that. There's going to be a joint legislative meeting of the commission and WACD on June 12th, tagged on to that. We've traditionally had two separate ones. There was one in Yakima, and I forget where the WACD one was.
Ellensburg.
Was it?
Mhm.
Okay, anyway, those are gonna be together, which makes a lot of sense to me, and that's it.
Okay. Okay, legislative update. Long-term funding committee. So we established that committee at our last meeting, and that committee met recently, and that committee, the committee is David and I from the board. David wasn't able to be at that meeting, and then Sarah and Susan from staff. And so Sarah, Susan and I met and kind of talked about where we were coming from and what we were hoping this committee was going to do. My perspective on that is that I'm hoping we can come up with a framework that, and a set of principles or priorities that allows us to very quickly respond to things that happen. Yeah, so that we know, if this thing happens over here, we go back to a framework of principles and priorities to decide how we react to that thing. And so I think, and Sarah and Susan, and Sarah, you can add too, they laid out some of their things here. The next step on this is we agreed to meet at least monthly. And in the interim, staff will go back and come back with like this initial framework to discuss at our next meeting. And then as we move forward, they will pull in other staff as needed, depending on what the particular issue is. But the idea is that sometime not too distant future, we as a board would be able to adopt this document as our guiding principle for how we're going to think about funding long-term.
Great.
Wow, we're on the same page. How unusual, Sarah.
Aquarian telepathy is happening.
I really like what you just said, TJ. There's been a resolution 3 or 4 years ago that we put forth for WACD to do it, and they're still pilling around.
Yeah.
They don't even have that much information, so this is great.
We move faster than WACD. So we'll get that next meeting scheduled at some point,
Yep.
David, and I'm hoping you're able to be a part of it and bring your expertise to the table too. Okay, number 9, CBA metric committee, Sarah.
Yeah, so the staff has elected or chosen Nora and Alex and Marguerite as the team that will be meeting with Marianne and Doug and I to start having conversations about defining those metrics that we want to track this 36-hour work week trial period that we're on. Right now, there's a lot of conversation that's happening on the staff side. I've been doing a little bit of research. We will be scheduling our first meeting in the month of April. So here's the tickler, Doug and Marianne. Expect some doodle poll scheduling to
Okay.
come your way.
Sounds good.
And I think you'll see that probably from one of our staff representatives. Most likely Nora will facilitate the scheduling of this group and help us kind of move these pieces forward. So look for that in the next week or so.
Awesome.
I appreciate knowing who it's coming from. I often get emails from people I don't recognize the name, so I can read it.
Well,
Yeah.
Yep. Happy to give you a heads up. It'll be Nora.
Okay,
Thank you,
I
Nora.
know Nora.
You do know Nora.
last item on our work session is our updates and announcements. Start online. David, do you have anything?
Nothing for today.
Okay.
I don't have anything, but I have a quick question.
Okay,
Can we considered, like, when we do projects, having a sign that says TCD, you know, with like maybe a QR code that brings the community awareness?
We have implemented different signs for different types of projects. Signage is typically specific to the funder with specific rules and requirements. Recently, the QR code conversation has come up because they're being hacked. And diverting people to malware, to things that are skimming money that are, I mean.
Forget the QR
So
code.
that has become more problematic in our outreach scene. But yes, we do. BSP
Okay.
participants get a sign. Sometimes when we do larger projects that you can see, usually more in a suburban or urban area, we'll put a sign like a rain garden sign we have out in front of one of our rain gardens.
Okay, I was just wondering, it's a community thing, I thought.
Yeah.
Getting our name out there. All
I
right.
think it would be
Good.
great to have even more of those.
Yeah.
It is most cost effective to put them where people can still see
Right,
them.
yeah,
exactly.
a lot of our projects are not where people can see things, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that, but we
Okay.
do when we can.
Okay.
Nothing? I don't have anything either. Sarah,
I wanted to share that Wade is happening and this legislative meeting that's gonna tag on to make it a marathon event. And see if there's any interest from the board in participating, because we are gonna submit our Wade registration by Monday. And we wanna make sure that if you're interested in coming, that we can register you for the conference while we still have the early bird rate. If you're interested only in the legislative workshop, we've got time. That information and registration has not come out yet, so. We don't have to respond to that one, but if you want to attend the 3-day training conference put on by the Washington Association of District Employees. I would love to know more, and I can send you the schedule too, so you can see the different types of sessions if you haven't peeked at it already.
what were the dates on that again?
It is
9, 10, 11.
Yes.
June.
And then the ledge meeting would be on the 12th?
Yep.
Yeah, I can't participate.
What were the dates?
9, 10, 11 for the Wade conference, and that's in Leavenworth. And then the 12th will be the legislative workshop, and they're hoping to have it close by. I don't know if it will be in Leavenworth, I don't know if it'll be in Wenatchee, I don't know if it'll be in Ellensburg, but it'll be somewhere central-ish.
All right, I have to look.
They're really informal and really worthwhile,
Uh-huh.
and so many times the supervisors don't get engaged, and this is a chance to do that.
Okay. All right.
And it's possible
was-
there'll be
I
a
went last
virtual
year. It was very
opportunity.
interesting. I thought it was more productive than the annual meeting by far,
Mhm.
just in terms of discussion and getting to the substance of issues.
Yeah.
Thank
We,
you.
question for you, do we have an employee for this year's nomination of employee of the year?
I think there are a few employees that may be nominated. Anybody can nominate, so employee of the year nominations are open currently, anyone can nominate an employee, so if supervisors would like to, you're welcome to. It also could be a member of the commission or a fellow supervisor you could nominate. I think they've expanded it.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah. There are multiple staff, I think, nominating multiple other staff.
I'll nominate you if you nominate me.
Thank you, I don't need to win it again.
Was that your only announcement?
Yes.
Okay, then it is 6:03. We will end the work session. We will have 27 minutes to break here, and we'll come back at 6:30 for the board meeting.
Very good.
Let's start. Okay, it's 6:30. Welcome, everyone, to Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors March meeting, March 25th, 2025. We have a quorum of members here tonight, 3 in the room and 1 online and 1 excused. We are recording this. And first item up here is agenda review. Any changes to the agenda? We made one earlier. We decreased the length of session in the length of time in the executive session to 10 minutes. It's not gonna take 20. So that'll go from 7:25 to 7:35 or whenever we start till 10 minutes later. And that's the only change, I think, unless anybody else has one.
I move we accept the agenda with the amendment that TJ proposed.
Okay, moved by Doug. Is there a second?
Second,
Seconded by Mary Ann. Put on the agenda then, Doug, Mary Ann, David,
aye.
votes aye. We've approved our agenda. Takes us to consent. Three items on consent tonight, the two we always see, which is the minutes of our last month's meeting and work session, our financial report, and then we also have a funding agreement, fairly large funding agreement with Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. So that's our consent agenda. We'll need a motion to do something with that.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Moved by David. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Doug.
I'd like to comment on, I really like the summary sheet that's on the front of the 28-page document for however many it was.
62 pages,
Yeah,
isn't it,
whatever
or
it
something? Yes, it
I
made
think
it
I fell
easier.
asleep on 28, no, but that's really good.
Okay, so the vote on the consent agenda then, David,
Aye.
Doug,
I,
and Mary Ann?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, we've approved consent. Takes us to public comment. Point at which any member of the public can address the board for up to 3 minutes on a topic that's on their mind that would also be of interest to the district. I do not think we have any members of the public online or in the room today, so going once on public comment. Going twice. Public comment is closed. We will move to partner reports. Item 5. First up here is NRCS. We don't have NRCS here. However, I can report a little bit on that because I've been working with them on a couple of grant applications. So the current round of EQIP projects have been ranked and the expectation is that they will be funded. The NRCS is also in the process of ranking the CSP Conservation Stewardship Program applications, of which I am one of those. Again, at this point, they expect those contracts to be issued. Well, the deadline, I think, is the end of this month, so coming right up, and then probably within 4 to 6 weeks, they plan to issue contracts and obligate that funding. And at this point, they say the next round of EQIP is still on track for like a fall application deadline, late summer, early fall application deadline. So, when I met with Michelle a couple, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, maybe, I guess at this point, she said they are definitely not hiring any new people and that some of the areas around the state are having some problems right now getting through the application process and contracting, but here in our region, for now, things seem to be moving forward. So it's relatively good news, I guess.
I've got a little more on NRCS.
Yeah.
There's talk about office closures around the state.
Yes.
Dayton is one I heard. I can't remember the other one.
Gallup is
Well,
another
yeah,
one.
that surprised me.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, at the WACD meeting, Roy Lean gave a brief update. She said right now they have 72 Washington vacancies. If they can't get those filled, that's a 42% reduction.
Yeah.
And she also pointed out a federal employee problem. If the shutdown lasts 22 days, this is prior to the March 14th. If the shutdown lasts 22 days, employees go on furlough and OPM can deem those employees as not necessary.
Yeah.
What a weird system. And then just before I came here, I got this in the email, which I'll pass around. I'd like to keep this. I'm going to send an electronic copy to Sarah so you guys can see it. It talks a lot about some of the closures and where they're at and what Rollins is doing and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah, and you probably saw, or maybe you sent it out, they announced the new team, all the undersecretaries and the director of NRCS, and it's, I think as you would expect, it's a who's who of big ag, corporate friendly folk. Yeah. Yeah. All right, NRCS, maybe on a happier note, Josh.
Yeah, we'll see.
Welcome,
I've
Josh.
got good news and I've got bad news. So you guys probably saw in the news, the House and Senate released their budgets yesterday. Public hearings are underway today. The commission will send out information, but I think they're waiting to see the capital budget come out next week. We've heard here and there, you know, whether it was district people talking to legislators and reporting out, or, you know, things that we've heard is that some of the cuts that they've proposed, you know, they might be made up on the capital side. You know, a couple things that, like, if you were to force me, I don't even know if I could tell you which budget is better, at this point. They both, take some pretty heavy-handed moves to, programs. One budget takes some of CTA, another one doesn't. One of them cuts, you know, a couple programs, another doesn't. It's a mixed bag. And so, you know, as you know, we expect this is all gonna end up in conference anyways, and so we'll just have to see it, and we're not, it's not as dire of a situation on the capital side. It is down, but not as significant as what they're facing right now. So be looking for something in the next week or so that will go out to all supervisors and managers and such. So,
Josh, question,
Yeah.
you said one of the budgets cut some programs, which programs?
What do we call it? Oh gosh. Well, one of them was the disaster assistance program and the other was the science hub.
It did go shoot.
So, and they cut the FTE too, which is, you know,
Yeah.
stuff. And unfortunately that, you know, I mean, I'm gonna knock on wood that doesn't happen, but, like, that's just getting going. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity there. The staffer Levi has put a lot of energy into that, coalesced with a lot of researchers, a lot of the state partners and science folk. And it's really, you know, one of their out products is just to really, you know, truth, conservation, and, you know, that, you know, on the ground conservation has an effect. So that's a tough one. There's some shaves in other programs, but those two were on the block. So
Thanks.
yeah. So we, as just during the break, we had a commission meeting last week. Excellent tour. Sarah was mentioning the green crab. We all got to, so Grace Harbor has a boat and they trap pretty much every day all year. And March is usually kind of a slower year for the green crab as far as their, I don't know what they do or where they go, but they just don't catch as many. But they went and did a 2-hour soak in the morning to bring pots to the boat dock. And they probably had 7 or 8 pots, and we all counted and sorted and whatnot. And out of just that 2-hour soak, there was 461.
Oh, whoa.
And you might have seen something in the news about, you know, 1 million green crab, and it was tied to Puget Sound. But the truth of the matter is like 80,000 of those came from Puget Sound. The rest are coming from Grace Harbor. So it's a real threat. And so you've got efforts in Pacific and Grace Harbor that are helping DFW's trapping. I think DNR is doing some trapping. The tribes are doing some trapping. So it's a big deal. So we also visited the brewery, and then we wrapped up on a project that you know, the model is no stranger to what you guys do, and it's multi-year, you know, multi-crossing biennium projects, you know, big restoration projects. You get your design, you do your engineering, you get your implementation, and you're doing your maintenance, and it takes time. And so that was really hammered home. It's been a conversation that's been elevated to our executive director quite a few times in the last year since he's been on board. And so at the commission meeting, he requested that the commission urge staff or kind of empower staff to develop and explore multi-year over biennium funding. And so they approved that. And so now we're going to explore that. It's nobody can really say, even with all the institutional knowledge, maybe it was just a matter of, you know, the level of funding at the time, but it just was never an option to do it. But now that we're seeing, bigger funding sources become available to us in the districts, to do a lot of the work that, and especially in the riparian landscape where you need to do some level of restoration to get that riparian area established, this might be a good fit. And while they did prescribe a certain program, I think the underline is like the riparian grant program would be the first one to kind of, maybe proof it out. So we're really excited about that. And then other stuff to come out of the commission meeting, just a lot of program guideline updates. If anything, I'd probably the riparian grant program is the one that maybe had some significant changes. One of the pieces that would be removed from there is the acquisition piece, which, we're not entirely set up to handle that, but like RCO, they have that in their riparian program and it might be more appropriate there. And if that is the case, if it, comes out, it could be where, those projects can take a lot of, $6-7 million for one acquisition. If that's not in there, then that's gonna be more for, other parts of that program, so. We'll see how that goes. And then just, the commission is, we're trying to really communicate about our, financial process. As I've been in this job and with the commission, it seems like it's this ever evolving beast. We heard the grants manual is kind of like a Frankenstein document. It's just been built over time. And so while it's out for public comment right now, there's a cohort of district managers and fiscal staff at the districts and agency staff that are gonna be working over the next 2 years to really just rebuild it and come up and, intercede with some hopefully really helpful things. I think some early actions will be helpful, like you have 60 days to bill instead of get it in that month. So different things like that. So we're gonna be having a training to talk about the end of the biennium or the end of the fiscal year, starting a new biennium and kind of going over the grant contract stuff that's on April 9th. So any of your fiscal staff want to attend that, that's coming up. So. And there'll be an announcement. It did go out today, it'll go out this week. That's it. Happy to answer any questions.
You were first.
Arm wrestle. I just wanted to really underscore the multi-biennial contract piece that Josh mentioned is huge. It has not been allowed in commission policy in the past. And so this is a big change. We have other funding sources like through our shoreline program where we can apply for 6 years of funding to do some of these larger scale bulkhead removal projects. With our commission funding, it has always been truncated to each biennium, which leaves a lot of uncertainty for some of these big projects and planning them and sort of the continuity of managing them throughout that space and time. Everything has to be tied up and finished in these neat little packages. If we're doing in-stream work too, we really only have 1 year right in the middle of that biennium to do it because we get our funding in July-ish. And then we have to spend it by June of 2 years later. So we've got that little sandwiched year to do this work. So this one change, although it seems really simple, is gonna allow a lot of financial stability in districts. It's gonna allow us to support cash flow management a whole lot better. And it's gonna allow us to plan and be more efficient about implementing large scale conservation projects. So this is a huge deal, and many districts, including ours, vocalize support for this at the commission meeting because it's really, it's gonna make a huge difference to the future of voluntary conservation through districts. So a lot of thank yous to the commission and to James for recognizing that and elevating it.
My question was basically the same as Sarah's. I think the logistics just makes eminent sense. I would hope that during that meeting that WACD said, yeah, we would like to help with that.
The grants manual?
The
No, the multi-biennium.
I don't know if they spoke up. I don't know what the plan, like how it's gonna be pulled together, like who's gonna participate in that, but.
Allowed to put on my WACD hat and say, yeah, WACD should be there.
I have a green crab question.
Yeah,
So I know they're invasive, but are they edible?
no,
Okay,
there's just like a big one is like this
Yeah.
big. And they're like 4 inches, like 3.5, 4 inches.
it's too bad that it's not a repurposing.
So they're
They do.
repurposing it into compost.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I figured,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Very good,
And they're, so like at the end of the day, they take them, they have to freeze them.
Okay.
And then they take them to a disposal area, they get ground up and put into
perfect,
Yeah.
perfect,
some other
Yep.
beneficial use.
thank you.
For a little while on Willapa Bay, there was a Norwegian company that was taking the crab shells and making some sort of product out of it. I don't remember what it was,
Yeah.
but maybe there's.
Fish and Wildlife's been kind of funny. I think they're still, like about what you can do with them. You have to you have to landfill them or do something. Like you have to get them out of.
Yeah. Makes
Oh,
sense.
Like,
Food
there's-
grade or whatever it is.
yeah, like get them away from any water.
I wish I could remember what that chemical was that they were extracting from the shells.
Hmm.
But they went bust, so maybe it didn't work.
All right, well, since you have your WACD hat on, let's do the WACD NACD update.
Okay, the WACD part will be really quick. There was a meeting on the 17th, so a couple weeks ago. Basically, it's going pretty well. I mentioned the planning commission, the planning meeting in conjunction with the commission right after Wade, so you got that. The PMC, the Plant Material Center, finances are down, but they'll come up because they're selling stuff like crazy right now. They've harvested 1.7 million plants, which is more than last year. So that's about a 7% increase, as I recall. Despite the stock downturn, WACD is still about 91,000 ahead, which that's really pretty good news. I think the investments are like 1.6 million, something like that. So 91,000, that's pretty good. So that's all for WACD. I mentioned some of the other stuff already. On NACD, you got my report in the packet. Executive orders continue to be introduced, lawsuits. I mean, you guys all know that all the stuff that's going on there. Federal agencies are working to interpret and implement and trying to figure out what the hell's going on and what can we do, how can we save people and that sort of thing. NACD is encouraging members to reach out to Chris Young. He's the government affairs director at NACD to share updates and concerns specific that how this stuff is affecting us on the ground. And if you need Chris's email, I can certainly send that to you on his phone number. He's pretty responsive. He's pretty much overwhelmed. He's only got one staffer working for him, so sometimes it takes 2 or 3 days for him to get back, but he's pretty good. That's it.
All right. That's
And
it.
the fly-ins tomorrow.
All right, moving to item 6, governance. First item here is election and appointment updates. Sarah.
Yeah, so you saw a memo in your packet from Susan, our election supervisor. We had a great election day on March 18th. Our process has again gone super smoothly. We're really grateful for our temporary polling officers. They do a lot of work and we really appreciate them. Ballot count will happen on Friday. Unofficial results will be sent out via email on that. That will wrap up our elections piece. We'll send that information off to the commission for certification in May. On the appointment front, we've received 1 application so far. I've heard of other interest in the community. It may be that we receive more than 1 application. Deadline is at the end of this month. And then the commission will do their interviews and go through their process in April. And then that will also go forward for certification in May.
Does the commission, I guess I should know this, but I don't, having been here a while. If there are multiple applicants for an appointed position, do districts get to weigh in at all
Yes.
with the commission?
They'll
on
call
that?
you.
Yeah,
They'll call.
so the process is the regional manager and 2 commissioners interview the candidates. And then the commissioners usually do reference checks and the regional manager checks in with the manager.
Okay.
what I always did was interject myself into the process.
Hard to believe, Doug.
You all are aware of some of the people we've had.
Yes. Well, the one person who's applied so far is Susan Kravitz, who was at our meeting,
Yeah,
who was introduced by Betsy, so we at least know,
I talked
the
to
one
briefly.
person at this point, so.
I'll follow that up with an email with more information.
Okay, thank you. All right, next month, let's take a look at what we have in front of us next month.
I've got one note for the consent agenda.
Yeah.
Adopt the annual and strategic plan.
Yeah, we added that at our work session. Okay, there we go. April 22nd, Earth Day, I believe. Right? Isn't that the 22nd? I think it is. So there we go. Put blanks.
You wanna have any?
It's very sketchy at this point. Well, we will have update from the long-term funding committee. That'll be a standing item on work sessions at this point. Well, let's put that in there.
And Sarah, you're on the WACD sustainable funding, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so we got a crossover there.
Yep.
Can stay synced.
there's a linkage.
Okay. So that's, well, let's take a look at the board meeting agenda there. Okay, item C, we added approval of the annual report. Well, let's make them separate items. So item C would be the updated strategic plan. And then item D would be the 2025 annual plan. Oops, I said. Switching.
I know. I feel ya.
All right, and there we go. So placeholder for an executive session if needed next month on real estate.
No other executive session needed.
At this point. Okay, there we go. There's our draft for next month. That then takes us to tonight's executive session. So we're about to enter an executive session to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition
Nice to see you.
of real estate. This is permitted under RCW 4230-110-1B. The participants in that executive session will be board members, staff, and legal counsel. Not all staff, just our executive director and legal counsel. We will have a 10-minute executive session, at which point we will return back. We will not make any decisions in executive session. We will have discussion and provide direction. And then we'll report out 10 minutes later. It's now 6:54. So we will be back in public session at 7:04.
Hang on.
Thanks for the update, Sarah.
Good job.
Okay, it is 7:04. We just completed a 10-minute executive session on real estate acquisition, site selection. We got an update and a little discussion and took no action. So with that, we've come to the point of adjournment for this evening's board meeting. So we will need a motion to adjourn.
I moved to adjourn the meeting.
Moved by Mary Ann, seconded by Doug. Vote on adjournment. Mary Ann,
Hi.
Doug, David?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody, at 7:05 PM, and it is still